Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and or evening, depending on where you are, and Happy New Year. Welcome to the first webinar of CEPREC in 2026. Um, CEPREC stands for the Circular Economy Powered Renewable Energy Center, and what we are doing is basically leveraging the principles of the circular economy to advance Africa's energy transition. And we have a three-pronged approach. Firstly, is to create new knowledge. Secondly, is to build capacity. And thirdly, is to enable evidence-based policies. Okay. And we've been holding webinars every month just to showcase what we're doing and how empower people with the knowledge we are generating. And today we are very privileged to have with us Dr. William Murithi, who is from Strathmore University. He's senior faculty in entrepreneurship, strategy, and family businesses. Um, he has over 15 years of experience cutting across higher education sectors, enterprise development, and managing consulting across the UK, China, Ghana, and Kenya. So he brings a very big wealth of experience to the table today, and he will be speaking to us on the topic from drive to grid, looking at the whole business models for Second Life batteries in Africa. So we're very privileged, and thank you to William for presenting this webinar. I will now hand over to William to for the webinar for today.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Moyua, and good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, whatever you are joining us, and good morning as well, us in the Northern American, all that. So we welcome you to this year's. I don't know whether it's too late to wish you a happy new year, so I'll just do that. And glad to be taking this session where we're talking about business models for Second Life batteries within the CEPREC project. So this session, I intend to have a presentation, and then probably from there we can have a conversation or questions and answer sessions to navigate across this topic. So the topic for today is from drive to grid, and then we're talking about circular business models for Second Life EV batteries in Africa. The structure of this session will be, we'll look at why this matters for Africa. We'll look at the key focus areas, questions that we intend to answer. And then we'll look at how we move from mobility to grid. And then, of course, some of the circular business models that I've tried to identify three just to make it very simple and clear. And then, of course, look at some of the ways to manage some technical, financial, and environmental risk, as this comes from the challenge that we have in Africa, and some policy prescriptions as well. As Professor Muyua said, we also try to look at policy and to inform policy around EV batteries as well as microgrids. So to start off, I want to just set out questions that I would like us to answer. I think figured out this is a good way to ask questions and to try and answer these questions during this webinar. And probably at the end of it, we'll look at whether these questions are well answered and whether there's any other conversation or anything that we can add on top of this question. So the first one is then how can EV batteries transition from mobility assets to grid scale value? So how do we convert EV batteries as we see them get into their second life applications or third life applications beyond their usage in EV vehicles and motors? So we look at how can we then get value from them, and then which circular business models unlock affordability, scale, and resilience within the African ecosystem. And also, lastly, we like to look at how can Africa manage technical, financial, and end-of-life risks. So as we start off the conversation, so why does this matter for Africa? So the first thing, of course, is to note that Africa faces a triple challenge here. One being is that there is a growing energy demand across Africa. I think it's very soon going to be the largest or the continent with a huge population. I mean, of course, I think after China and India, we might be becoming the first very soon with a growing population, which is, of course, as well, a very young population compared to the rest. There's a challenge here where we have approximate about 600 million Africans without electricity. So this poses, of course, how do we then be able to try and bridge this gap as much as we can to be able to provide electricity for a continent that is young, growing, with a very young population. I mean, of course, heavily underdeveloped. We're trying to also look at developments, whether it's construction, roads, manufacturing, and all that. So there's going to be a huge demand in terms of energy. And of course, another statistics that we know of is that fewer than half, which is about 43%, 43 to 24% give and take, given this data is from 2022, of Africans on average enjoy a reliable supply of electricity, meaning that there's a lot, of course, of inconsistencies in supply, even for those who have a connection to electricity. Then the second challenge here is we have limited grid reliability again. So meaning that businesses and of course as people don't have a consistent supply, businesses experience about 9 power outages per month, which is quite a lot when it comes to business. You can imagine how much loss or huge losses in terms of production and meeting the demand for businesses. And we know for a continent to develop, industrialize, then this should be supplied at affordable cost and very consistent as well. The third challenge here is the rising battery and e-waste flows. We've seen over the years an increase in e-waste. Of course, there's a lot of dumping that we see on second-hand imports of all this equipment, computers, e-waste generally, which, of course, the statistic is about 5 million metric tons of e-waste find itself annually in Africa. This is a huge challenge. If not managed properly, you can imagine what hazard or damage this can have on the health and, of course, the existence of Africans. As well as we see that less than 1% of this e-waste is formally managed or collected and recycled. So again, a huge gap in regards to the e-waste or this equipment and machines. And of course, EV batteries is contributing as well to this increasingly day by day as we see the increase in terms of adoption of EVs in Africa as well. And of course, these don't come new. Most of them come secondhand. And of course, there's implications to that effect. So what does this mean? Then again, the case for second life batteries representing a strategic circular opportunity here. And of course, we don't look at it as a problem. Of course, it can be, if not well managed, become a problem. But we are looking at this as an opportunity for Africa, given this challenge. First, the growing energy demand. Second, the limited and grid reliability that is there. And of course, this issue of increase in EV batteries, second-hand EV batteries that is contributing to electronic waste within the continent of Africa. So the first attempt to answer the first question, then how do we transition from EV batteries from mobility sector, which majority of them find their way through electric vehicles that are coming to Africa, being imported in Africa, to grid scale value, all right? So that's the first question. So for what we know within the project and the research that has been done is that a lot of these batteries are designed for high performance mobility. Of course, most of them are used within the EVs and vehicles, and what we know as well as approximately they get retired when they get to about 70%, give and take 60 to 70%, 80% capacity. And this, of course, creates an opportunity here because what we see, what we increasingly see is that these batteries are not really reached their end of life. And this means there's an opportunity here to step in and do something with these batteries before they can be completely retired. So what this means is that technically the batteries are still functional and they can be used for other uses, particularly for stationary energy storage. And this is a very good, I mean, I've called it the paradox, but it's a very good kind of way to look at it, that end of life EV batteries for vehicles does not equal end of life for energy systems. And probably if you can just rephrase that, then it means that it's the fast life usage for these batteries when it comes to energy storage. So we see this ability to either recycle these batteries for energy storage, particularly within the context of Africa, given the cost that is there as a barrier for new EV batteries when we want to use them. And I think this is also contributes quite a lot, as we'll see, in the cost of some of the renewable energy that we have, whether it's wind or solar. The battery system is one of the huge costs that is implicated or comes with transition to renewable energy, as we see. So there is an opportunity here that is created with what we are seeing and what the context is, that we can use some of these EV batteries for second life application, and that goes into energy storage, which has probably value in reducing the cost. So from this concept of getting an EV battery that has been retired from an EV vehicle because of, again, of efficiency, or some instances when we visit our stakeholders, we found that some of the batteries, given the conditions of our roads in Africa, for instance, the battery is just damaged. The casing has been damaged, and that affects the operation of the batteries as such. So it might not be used in the vehicle, might lead for it to be removed and used elsewhere for that sector. So this mobility assets, which is the EV batteries, can be then adopted for energy, developing our energy infrastructure. And this is quite a useful way to look at it. So some of the grid relevant applications, as we could just try to move this from a conversation of then repurposing this second life batteries and looking at the application and where can we apply them. So the first one is, of course, solar and wind energy storage, which is a major, I think, shift. And of course, one of the biggest value gain here in regards to the cost of new battery systems that are come with some of the solar and wind energy systems. And this is one of the key things that we're trying to look at when it comes to EV and its application to the project itself, circular microgrids, as we mentioned it. So the other instance, of course, is the creation of mini grids and microgrids support systems. And this is quite a substantial thing when it comes to looking at Africa, given, again, the structural challenges that are there for us to in this context. Then the other thing is, of course, as a backup supply, power supply for MSMEs, that is the micro, small, medium enterprises. And also, as we know, one of the biggest difficulties that is there is, I mean, of course, utility within the public facilities, whether this is sometimes not very consistent, not reliable. Again, this is a way to reduce the cost and to make sure that there's a consistent supply of energy in that place. The last one is load balancing and peak shaving. This is when there is high demand, peak periods, and low periods where some of this can be used for storage of energy. And this can be used when there are low demands. A lot of it can be stored, and systems can be done using these repurposed batteries to store energy, and this can be used again. We have a tendency or patterns within the African context to have sometimes, even on our roads, a clear analogy is to look at how transport network operates. There's a huge traffic within the morning hours, meaning that there's a huge demand, and of course, again, during evening. And this happens quite a lot, again, shifting from our households where when people are preparing to go to work in the mornings, there's a huge demand. And then, of course, that plummets during probably the day within the households, and maybe industries are using more. And similar situations or scenarios can happen again during the evening. So we have an opportunity there to build battery systems from this second life batteries to store or to balance our load as well. So these are some of the applications that we can move now to look at. How can we create business models around these applications for us when it comes to creating a business case for use of second life EV batteries? So why is this, again, positioned uniquely for Africa? Just to reiterate this, there's high off-grid and weak grid populations that are experiencing about, 600 million people from the data that we've seen from ARENA and the rest. Of course, again, an increase also in adoption for solar energy and renewable sources of energy. I think the data that we've spotted from sources is that there was an increase of solar uptake in 2025 particularly, and this is again going to grow year on year with substantial growth when it comes to uptake of solar energy, again because of the unreliability and of course lack of connectivity for most of rural and peri-urban areas when it comes to electricity connection. 42% increase last year, and this is expected to increase even more. The other thing is, of course, again, Africa, there's an issue of cost sensitivity because most of this technology is not well established, or manufacturing of this is from mostly countries that are industrialized, Europe and Asia, China to be particular. So again, the opportunity here for a strong case on refurbished batteries, which have already had their first life application in the transport sector, EV vehicles. And this means that there's an opportunity here for us to be able to take advantage of that, given the aspect of how costly this can be, which can be a barrier to adoption as well when it comes to technology. The other thing is, it's in Africa, again, we benefit a lot from availability of labor, which can be, of course, can be used or trained, or this can be done for repurposing. And we've tried to look at also what we are working through with our local partners is looking at this issue of training, right? Technicians or engineers to be able also to test these batteries, looking at the state of health. Then, of course, determine whether it's possible for it to be refurbished, meaning that you can remove some of the cells and then input others to increase the efficiency of the batteries, or again, repurpose these batteries for other things, or replace them as well. When it comes to EVs, that means that this goes also for second life application. So there is ability of that us to have labor that can be trained and used for that purpose. And then, of course, what this means as there's a huge opportunity for us to benefit from this second life batteries, aligned with, of course, our context or our reality, where we can support a lot of distribution within the future in terms of energy for Africa. So I think this makes the case that there's an opportunity here that can be exploited as the other world, first world, experiences first-hand batteries in their first life. We can also benefit a lot and leapfrog for technology to be used in second life application. So the second bit of it is to look at the circular business model that can be able to unlock affordability, scale, and resilience within our context in Africa. So I'll look at majorly three of them, which I think are promising in a way that we can adopt this, and looking at how we can be able also to take advantage of this to create new industries around second life application for batteries. So the key thing to note here is that technology already exists, so we're not reinventing the wheel. I think the challenge for us now, particularly for those working around the commercialization and business models, is looking at how can we commercialize this application to a scale where we can benefit. So there are a few factors that I think when it comes to looking at circular business model that must be in place, and this is the premise or the key thing that underpins these key business models that I'm going to look at. First, we have to look at reduction of upfront costs. So again, removing that cost barrier or reducing the cost barrier to an acceptable level then ensures that we're able to have scale or adoption of the technology that we're going to share here with this project and try to commercialize. So that's the first one. And of course, data has shown that using second-hand life batteries might reduce the cost of some of this technologies, microgrids that we're talking about, by at least about 28, 30 to up to 50%, depending on the scale of the projects that we are talking about here. So the other one is spreading the risk across the actors. So the beauty of this is that some of the proposition we'll talk about is there's a bit of spread of risk in terms of ownership of the technology and the usage of it. So this is a good thing, and this is what we need to have as a factor when developing or adoption of this second life application of these batteries. The other one is enable scale and replication across. So you're looking at models that can be replicable in a large, I think, way, in a huge way, not just developing isolated projects that are not scalable. So that's key again for the proposition that we're going to talk about. And the other thing is, of course, building this long-term resilience. So how do we safeguard, again, our energy systems to be resilient, whether it's predictability, consistency, we need to look into this, and reliability as well as a way of looking at it in that way. So the first business model is the battery as a service. I think this is when it comes to business models, circular business models that work, is people or actors within the ecosystem are able to take up this and the testing of the batteries, repurposing, looking at maintenance of these batteries. So is someone or a provider takes that risk to own some of these batteries, and then they provide the batteries as a service to users, and whether it's in a mini grid or microgrid or other ways of these batteries to be used. So this means that the provider retains the ownership of the battery and is able to lease these batteries or to extend them to users at a fee, right? So meaning that the user does not bear the cost or upfront cost of buying the second-hand life batteries. And this ensures that there's an incentive as well from the producer to maintain them. I think checking the state of health of these batteries is key for their longevity as well in usage, whether it's second life applications that is required. Of course, the other thing is it lowers capital barrier. So this is quite critical again for adoption of technology. We have to minimize the barriers. And one of the barriers is always the investment in upfront capital in this mini grid, microgrids applications. And the other thing is, I mean, of course, what we know from the studies that we've done and the usage that we've seen is that it's very ideal for mini grids, microgrids, and particularly for small, medium enterprises, because again, the cost of production of energy in Africa is quite high, and this makes difficult for some of these industries and businesses to operate in a profitable way because of some of these barriers, particularly with the cost of electricity in manufacturing. So just to give examples, we've been able to look at what is happening, and some of these examples might be, again, closer home as opposed to most of the countries that we're operating in. That is Kenya, Rwanda, Namibia, South Africa, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone. So for instance, you look at ARC Ride, which is, again, a provider of batteries. What this means is that they provide quite a huge battery as a service to their providers. And these are opportunities for us also to look at when these batteries are coming to Africa and they're being used, then how can we place ourselves to use for Second Life? I know one of the key model that Basigo is using is providing battery as a service. So you get to acquire a bus and then you get to have a battery. Again, these are new batteries, but we can use these batteries, similar models, to apply in Second Life, where someone takes up the ownership of these batteries, their maintenance, and provides them as a service to this micro systems, microgrids, and mini grids and users. We also know that Asele, one of the one of the Kenyan companies here as well, which is specializing in the production of batteries. One of the models as well they're going to be using is having their batteries again provided as a service, because again they've noticed that the cost of the battery is a hindrance to adoption of this batteries within the different areas of their usages, particularly in two-wheelers, microgrids within households, and also in other machineries like farm equipment and all that. So they are providing, as you can see there, one of their battery packs as a service, and then they take responsibility for maintaining the batteries, checking its state of health, and its uses across board as well. So this is one of the key models, and I think for us to see whether we are able to scale these technologies as we try to develop them, is to ensure that also the adoption or commercialization of this technology is quite going to happen rapidly and will scale. In other terms, scaling is key, as we've seen in the factors for us having business models that work. So the second one is, of course, utilizing this in utility and micro grid integration. So the Second Life batteries can easily be used or integrated within community microgrids. So this lowers the cost of maintenance quite high. Sorry, the cost of the microgrids establishment quite proportionally. I think we've seen figures from about 28% to up to 50%. Looking at rural electrification projects, which is quite key. As you can see, what we know in Africa is that the rural areas are not well electrified, and they are off-grid. Majority of them are off-grid, and this is where we have huge population that can benefit from this technology of using Second Life battery application. Again, the application can be done for commercial and industrial clusters, and this is where we have, again, businesses, factories, mini factories across the region in areas where they're remote, and it's very costly to bring the grid to these areas. We can use Second Life batteries parks built specifically for this commercial usage and industrial classes. So what does this mean when it comes for this model? The circular advantage here is that lowers the system cost. Again, the battery system is one of the costly compact unit when it comes to adoption of renewable energy, such as solar systems and wind, and then of course improves grid reliability. As is seen, one of the challenges that the lack of reliability for the grid. These ones ensure that there is sort of reliability, because again, this technology is delocalized and can be managed efficiently at the local level. And again, what it does that it also brings in local energy resilience for the communities, households, and the businesses that utilize this. So there's a huge potential, again, when you look at this as a business model, adopting this second life batteries within the community microgrids, rural electrification projects that we are using. We designed this with a mind that they can use second life batteries. And we've seen also this application in some of the telcos around the country, which have also brought in a bit of EV batteries for their power systems to ensure that there's consistency in supply. In any case, there is lack of power from the grid. The battery system also kicks in because it acts as a storage system. So this is the second one where we see use of EV batteries, second life EV batteries within the utility and microgrid integration system. And again, Knights Energy, I've seen one of the representatives here that have tried to also apply this within their business models as well. So lastly is looking at it as a platform or aggregation models. So how this works is that I mean, of course, you look at several batteries. We've seen an increase in terms of adoption of electric vehicles technologies. What we've seen a lot in Africa is the two-wheelers, but three-wheelers, two-wheelers, but this is increasingly as well in the four-wheelers, I think, within the system. Then this looks at it from a perspective of, can we have organizations or companies set up to do mass importation, right? Mass importation meaning that whether it's EVs, we do import a lot of second-hand vehicles. Can we have mass a platform that is set up for EV particular vehicles? One can go in and import as many as they can. So importing EV fleets to Africa in mass, instead of just getting 1, 2, 3, 4 vehicles in, you can get this in numbers. So this is a platform that allows you to aggregate EV vehicles or batteries for second life applications. And this mostly, of course, as we build our technology, where we know most of our technologies and parts are imported, we can do this as a way to scale the numbers again for second life application. So anyone who's looking into the import and looking at import of second-hand EV vehicles is building a platform that one can aggregate or source for EV fleets. And then, of course, there is the global original equipment manufacturer partnerships. This is whereby local companies can partner with some of these companies, and again, tend to import second half-life batteries which have been retired from vehicles in Europe or China and these other places. And this ensures that, I mean, of course, there's a centralized testing, standardized testing and deployment mechanisms. And of course, what we've seen as well is increased use of battery passports, which ensures that there's also traceability, right? One of the key, again, challenges being able to trace these batteries to a single source within the African application, which can be challenging when we don't have a system or a model that works that way. So what is expected out of this as a model is to be able to look at scale efficiencies. Again, one of the challenges are getting batteries, a good number of batteries within the African ecosystem for application of second life to make it viable. Then there's predictability in terms of performance of batteries, because there is that centralized systems or standardized systems for testing them, and then deployment as well. And in a way, we know economies of scale. Once you have a way to aggregate, right, quite a number of batteries together, the cost, I mean, the budgetal cost comes down, and that's a benefit as well. So tendencies of this, I mean, of course, is working with companies like BYD, which is doing a lot of EV vehicle production within the Chinese market and replicate that, of course, within the African. And companies like Basigo are benefiting from this because, again, they're having these deals and trying to maybe through the importation of or usage of this BYD batteries, they can also aggregate second life batteries and bring them in as a business model for us to be able to benefit from these batteries. Then work with local players to test these batteries and deploy them again for second life application. We know also Anadox is working with collaboration with Rome, another company here, which is doing assembly of two-wheelers, motorbikes, and all that. And this is channels for them also to take this up as a way to build another business model, alternative business model for second life instead of just the first life application or first life batteries, new batteries. They could also try to aggregate and bring in second life batteries in markets where they've been retired and can be used. So how do we create value as I come to a close and then open it up for questions. So circular value creation across the life cycle of these batteries is what we are looking at. I mean, of course, where value is created and captured, we see collection and diagnostic as a way to look at aggregating these batteries within centralized systems. That means they're collected, whether it's after their first life use. And then, of course, what happens after that is refurbishment and redeployment of these batteries within the value chain. And of course, this is used for energy services. And again, there is an opportunity for these batteries when they reach their end of life recycling, which is another way to also create value by harvesting the black mass and all that for usage in other systems and its use as well. So that can be a business opportunity within the value chain for you to exploit. But of course, what we know is that this cannot happen without the support of the required skills and capabilities. And there's a lot of opportunities as well to train technicians in EV battery systems, energy managers as well, who can manage these microgrids and mini grids. I mean, of course, it comes with its own unique skills, not a similar way as what you see. And then, of course, there is circular supply chain actors who can also be trained to be able to handle these microgrids and mini grids that are being created with the application of second life batteries as a way of trying to I mean, of course, make value, create value across the life cycle of, again, second life applications all the way to the end of life. So as again, close, the last question is, how do you then manage some of the technical, financial, and end-of-life risks that come with second life applications of these EV batteries? So the first one within technical risks and ways to mitigate this. I mean, of course, some of the technical key risk that emerges, the battery degradation variability. So the rate of, I mean, of course, degradation of the batteries within the context. You know, our context is quite unique because of the different weather conditions. I mean, we are looking at temperatures of above 25 all the way to 30, 40. And this, of course, affects the efficiency of some of these batteries. So we need to look at how do we try and mitigate that. And there's safety and thermal management again. This is one of the key things, and high risk of these batteries becoming also a hazard when they are put in homes and their second life applications. We need to also know how to manage this. And of course, one of the key things that comes with this as well is the lack of standardization within the second life application. And this is consistent across most African countries where we don't have standards for repurposing some of these batteries. And this is one of the key discussion areas we're having with stakeholders to see how best to bring in standards and to ensure we have protocols to be followed when reassembly or repurposing of these batteries is happening for their second life application. So how do we mitigate this? I mean, of course, battery health diagnostic, having labs and people to test. We have also to look at modular system design. I mean, we have engineers in the team that are working on that. We also have to come up with standards and certification protocols, which are open access, again, for usage. And again, if we can be able to integrate technologies like IoTs for us to be able to digitally monitor some of the systems, it's always useful, particularly given that some of them will be in very remote and rural areas where it's very costly if we don't have technicians who are localized in the areas. Again, the beauty of it is that we can be able to train those technicians to monitor those systems, but if not, then having digital monitoring systems helps. Financial and investment risks. I think this is one of the fundamental risks when it comes to the technology itself, the use of second life application. I mean, of course, perceived technology risks that might emerge, which investors might shy away from, given that the application, one is that we don't have enough, or what we call a mass battery that can go into second life application. We have very little or very limited numbers at the moment. So there is, again, limited patient capital. I think this is one of the struggles of African businesses, that we don't have a lot of investment going into startups of this nature. So it requires a lot of bootstrapping, and before you realize the value of it or the profitability of some of these technologies, it's quite challenging. Then there's unclear revenue certainty, is to try and see, again, with the aspect of scaling some of these technologies. So some of the solutions that can help us to mitigate this financial and investment risk is looking at blended financing and guarantees. This comes in handy to look at different ways, a lot to do with the use of grants, and also some aspect of seed funding from private investors, which can also be able to de-risk some of these technologies. Performance-linked contracts, maybe, which again ensures consistency, traceability, and a guarantee to some extent of seeing these technologies implementation and use. Then we have also to look at, can we have anchor customers, protect businesses with anchor customers. We see this a lot in the real estate. When there's a big development, they have to look at for one anchor customer to take up space. And of course, this attracts other players and stakeholders to come into the business. And again, a lot of it has to be pay as you go or service model. So we try to reduce the huge investment when it comes to cost. So we see a lot of players, GIZ, Siemens, who are we've seen in the ecosystem trying to build, give grants. Drive Electric, one of our good partners, has benefited a lot from some of this upfront grants that are able to enable them to do a lot of work, research and development that is required to bring up this technology to market and all that. So as I finish, we'll say that there's a risk, I mean, of course, to Second Life, and it requires planning. And a lot of it is to look at also how do we recycle some of these batteries. There's designing end-of-life pathways, looking at the whole life cycle of these batteries is very key. I think this should be integrated from the word go. Recycling partnerships, we've seen upcoming businesses are able to also offtake some of these batteries after their use, end-of-life use, and try to recycle them, meaning that they harvest any usable materials from this. EnviroServe has been one of them as well. Implementing extended producer responsibility, where we hold organizations that have come up to hold manufacturers accountable for being able to recycle some of this batteries. We have CEPREC, which is Electronic Waste Producer Responsibility Organization in Kenya, for instance, that has come up to bring players and partnership within the industry between manufacturers, collectors like Quiescent, EnviroServe, and other players, and to be able to offtake these batteries and of course, safely recycle them. Again, lastly is policy alignment of disposal systems, and this more so driven by policymakers and the government. So they have to put in measures and ways to make sure that batteries, EV batteries, are handled well. Otherwise, we know the risk of them staying in our homes and the consequence of that for the health of the people. As I end, I just propose a few policy and ecosystem enablers in this area, where we say we need to have circular economy frameworks in place. We need to have battery reuse and safety standards, which you've seen are lacking across Africa and most countries. We need to have cross-border regulatory harmonization. And lastly, I mean, of course, a lot of skill development and R&D support to make sure that these technologies work. And I think that's why CEPREC is here, to try and give some evidence-based research, engage policymakers, and also bring a lot of partnerships within the industry, academic as well as government collaboration to make these technologies a reality. So I will end there with a quick summary. EV batteries are strategic energy assets and not waste, so we can use this for other applications. And of course, circular business model must be able to unlock affordability, extend use and scale. And we need also to design risk management from the start and not as the technologies are here. And as Africa, we have an opportunity here to leapfrog and become a circular energy leader. Right. Thank you so much. I'll stop there for any questions. Where you are.
Thank you very much, Dr. William. Okay, yes, I don't know. Do you want to do something with the menti.com, or do you want to
I'd
just
set out this just to get feedback from the participants. I know there is limited time for questions, but I also thought I would ask these questions to see whether there is any opportunities in their countries for second life applications, or whether there is barriers that they can see, and maybe how can we bring these policymakers and collaborators together to better bring this technology. So if they can just scan that on the background, they can answer as we try to answer the questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so anyone who has, please just try and scan that and do that. But anyone who has a question, can you please raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Any questions?
It was good then to have some questions. Okay, there's a hand coming up.
Yeah. You can unmute yourself now.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Muiwa. Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yes, thanks. Thank you very much, Prof. Doctor, for the presentation. My name is Pepe David. I'm one of the PhD students from the University of Namibia, and I'm working under work package 5. So I borrow a lot from your presentation. So I just have one question with regards to the business model number 2.
Okay.
Which looks at utility and microgrid integration. When it comes to the expected outcomes, I somehow don't really understand the predictable performance. Is it from the monetary kind of aspect, or is it more from the energy output from the batteries? If you can just elaborate there a bit.
All right. Okay. So the second model is whereby we look at this, the integration of second life batteries within the mini grids and microgrids, utility. This is energy systems within that. So there are two ways you can look at it. Value for money you save in the upfront cost of this microgrid, developing these microgrids. And then, of course, given these batteries can be, again, second life batteries can be either repurposed and, again, redeployed, meaning that you can increase the the efficiency of this battery. So there's an efficiency aspect of it. It might not be 100% again, given that it's a second life batteries, but removing some of the cells and trying to bring that to almost 100% efficiency. So this can also work. And given that these batteries would have been tested and used and can be also reliable. So I think I look at it from that cost saving that you save upfront cost. And this means that whoever is providing this energy as a service for these communities in the rural areas is also able to benefit as they will charge an affordable rate, which again allows scaling and adoption of this as a way to access energy for the rural communities, which again, most of their income is not spent in energy. This can also increase, I think, the monetary profits when it comes to these businesses. If it's a business, if someone is operating this as a business, then they're able to have scale, which again increases their income. So you can look at both ways that way. The energy efficiency aspect of it might not be 100%, but we know it can be, what we look at it from that side is the resilience that is built, reliability as well, that is there, and consistency of the use, I think. I hope that answers the question, David.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Any other questions? Any questions from anyone else? We have a few more minutes. Yep, Selma Lentevo. Hold on, let me try and unmute you. Can you speak? Sorry, Selma, can you unmute yourself? Sorry, speaking. Selma, can you? William, you can hear me, can you?
Yes, I can. Yeah, she's not on mute yet. I think she's still muted.
In the meantime, do we have any other person that has a question?
Probably she can type as well if she's able to.
Yeah.
Type the question. It's another way to.
Okay, while we're waiting for that, I was just wondering, from what you presented, right, which of the contexts, urban, rural, peri-urban, or probably industrial clusters, which of these offer the strongest near-term case for this sort of applications of second life batteries or the whole business model? Do you think, yeah?
Right. So I think again, that's a very good question. And looking at how you've structured that from rural, peri-urban, urban, industrial classes. So I think what most of our governments have concentrated on is providing grid electricity to urban areas. So one of the biggest barriers is the psychological barrier, I would say, when it comes to someone shifting from what is already available to a new, maybe not so clear technology that they might see it as an extra cost. So for me, which presents the huge or the viable, I think, application for this might be rural, because when you don't have anything, you're willing to take up something, right? And from that perspective means that the cost of bringing this as well, it's going to be marginal, not as much. Again, this is different if you're looking at it from a social perspective where you're providing a service, right? Because electricity, we've seen over 600 million, and most of this are within the rural communities and remote areas. But if you're looking at it from a business perspective, then again, you're looking at the cost benefit analysis here. You might consider industrial clusters as a way, because there's huge consumption, meaning that your unit cost and whatever you're producing, if you're doing this as a business, might make sense there. However, for me, both economic and socioeconomic benefits goes to the most would be rural areas, then clustering that and coming to, even within the urban areas, there's peri-urban and there's also high populated areas, which we normally refer to as slums, which can benefit from this. Again, it's just a conditional way of looking at it. Africa is big. How can we make this work for all countries? That's Selma, I think, who's asking that question. Again, a lot of this, it's a very, very good question. What we might get out of this study is look at, as I said again, different context or factors that drive energy adoption and also consumption within those countries. What I would say is that we are diverse and different, but I think there's a bit of commonalities when it comes to Africa itself as a case. And I think one of the key things is to not try to come up with an all-size-fit solution here, is to look at the contextual factors, look at the policies and contextualize this. And I think that's why we have put ourselves in 6 countries across East, West, and South to look at the different dynamics. And I think this will inform a lot of the adoption and contextualization as well. For instance, when it comes to Kenya, I think most of our power is renewable, 90% of it, close to that. That means that we have already a plug and play, right? So we might plug these batteries or technology into already existing renewable energy systems, and this helps, right? But you go to some places where you realize that there's, again, the generation of renewable energy transition has not really happened, and that's a different way of looking at it, meaning that you have also to develop solutions and models that work for that. So yeah, it's a challenge, but also is an opportunity here to look at the dynamics and differences within Africa, and how we can be able to develop this to work for some of them. What I know is that in most cases, there are some common factors that we can ride on, but with a bit of contextualization for each country.
Okay, thank you very much. Our time is fast spent. So we'll have to call it a day now, but thank you so much to Dr. Murithi for the very insightful presentation, and thank you to all of you who have joined and stayed with us. As I said, we do different events, different things. Webinars is one of the things, but I would advise you to stay in touch with us. I've pasted a link to a link tree where you can find different platforms. So this will be on YouTube. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, where we share updates and our papers, and so everything. Just stay connected. So thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, and we look up for their partnership as well as we continue the project. So let's keep engaging. Thank you.
Bye.